to ask for a motion to adopt the agenda as is. Actually, I'm going to have a motion to adopt the agenda. Can I have one of Neville or Jamie? Thank you. I'll take that as a yes. And thank you. And I'll go to any suggested changes, anything anybody else has.
Sorry, I need permission from you to record it. So if you can just hit record on yours.
On the bottom or something? Oh, that's, oh,
Yeah.
sorry, in
That's
Metro
okay.
they taught us never to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you, sorry everybody, okay, record to the cloud?
To your computer.
Is this how Big Brother takes over my life? Record to onto this computer, eh?
Yes.
Which computer is this computer?
Yours.
I'm taking one for the team here, everybody. Okay, it's recorded on my computer, this should be good. Okay, thank you very much, we are back. Okay, so, any changes to the agenda? I have, on my mayor's report, which is item 8B, I'd like to expand that to item number 2, CN Police. And number 3, Village Update Stats. And somewhere in here there's new business, I'm sure there is. And new business, I'd like to put Airbnbs. Are there any other changes? Okay, then I'll,
Shall I go ahead and speak now?
yes, you're good.
Yeah, so I suggest that we move 10A to follow the adoption of the agenda for consideration of council, and also to refer to the information report from Robert that was circulated this afternoon, be added as item 8A2.
Okay, and thank you very much as an information report, and thank you. And, oh, I guess I can see it on my phone, good, even better. Thank you very much, Peter, and Norm, your hand is up.
No, I was just curious about when we would introduce perhaps revisiting the trail closures. Would we do that under new business?
I don't know about everybody else, I can't hear you, Norm.
Oh, I'm not muted.
I can hear you.
That's better.
Okay. No, I was wondering where we would introduce perhaps revisiting the village trail closures.
It's coming up. Peter, which section is that again? That's in the,
I was suggesting, per the email I sent out about 20 minutes ago, sorry for the late send, but that we do it under 8A2 when we're looking at the report from Robert regarding trails.
okay, so we'll do trails. I got Robert. Okay, so I tell you what, let's make that as a piece as part of the agenda under staff reports. And I think for me, I'm using a PC, everybody. If you've got your phone, you may not be able to do multiple screens here. So just a thought. Okay, so Neville and Jamie, can you concur that the agenda is adopted as amended?
I agree.
Jamie? Are you fine with the adoption of the agenda, Jamie?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, Jamie. Which brings us to item 10A, which is the council procedure bylaw number 476, 2015, amendment bylaw number 575, 2020. In your packages, it's page 49. And the motion is that council procedures bylaw number 476, 2015, amendment bylaw number 575, 2020 be adopted. I will put forward that motion. I will ask for a seconder and we'll go to discussion. Can I have I put forward the motion. Can I have a seconder?
I will second.
Thank you very much. And then we are in discussion. I think on this CAO, we'll have any words from you first before we go to discussion with councillors.
Okay, I'm suggesting that you go ahead and adopt this bylaw amendment so that when the time comes that this emergency is over, that you will still have the ability to have 4 out of 5 councillors participating in a meeting electronically, because the changes that were introduced today by the minister's order will only last as long as the provincial state of emergency exists. And there may be occasions in the future where you need to have more than 2 councillors or council members participating electronically.
Very good, thank you very much. There is nothing materially changed from our first 3 readings the other night. So we'll go to discussion. Are there any questions, any points of clarification? If there are, please hit the hand up thing and we'll go. Councillor Barmeyer, your questions?
So how does the public get to participate in a scenario like that? Does that change at all?
So the way things stand at the moment with the minister's order today, one of the orders today, includes the stipulation that an open meeting does not require the attendance of the public. So council does not have to provide for the attendance or participation of the public, and it's still a so-called open meeting. However, it is my opinion that we should do everything we can to ensure that the public does have opportunities to participate in open meetings, even when they are held electronically, and that Carla and I are looking at different ways that we may achieve that purpose, whether it's a combination of using Zoom and teleconference line from TELUS, or whether it's a case of expanding the full potential capabilities of Zoom. I think that we need to work towards providing opportunities for the public to participate. So we'll continue to do that. We're legally valid because of the order, even with no public participation or attendance, but I think that we should strive to do that in any event.
Okay, thanks, Peter.
Thank you very much, Peter. Neville, I've got something to add, but you're first up.
Yeah, I building on what Norm just said, actually, I had one resident who on Tuesday night texted me and said, "How do I listen to the meeting?" So, there's a younger demographic in our residents that are much more savvy than us and some of this stuff, and that particular person was expecting there was going to be a calling thing. He wanted to call in and comment about what we were about to do. So I think regardless of whatever the current situation is, or what we can get away with, we should, as fast as possible, even if we bundle our way through it, we should, fast as possible, allow residents to at least sign in and be able to do 2 minutes as they normally would.
I
And
agree.
then listen along if they choose.
There you go. If I can jump in here, and Neville, could you put your hand down? The Metro's holding a meeting that's probably going to last 3 hours tomorrow. There'll be no attendance by the gallery or none by junior staffers. In my village update that I've written and sent draft to Peter, I've addressed the issue under council issues as technology. And I've said that like all municipalities are struggling with the same thing. The smaller, there's usually fewer attendance, and the bigger, I was thinking of when Mayor Vagramoff was having his issues. I think there was upwards of 70 people in a gallery. Same thing for Surrey any given night, and the same thing for Vancouver. So the current vogue is to do nothing. What I've written to the villagers is that we take the technology seriously, and that we are moving towards it. I didn't know we were going to be testing a platform. I said that we hope to put a platform in test soon, with implementation by the end of April, which would involve a public import to that. I'm interested to see how Metro handles this, because at this moment, when I asked their technology person, they're not contemplating it right at this minute. But I think from our perspective, we know that when there's a gallery here, there's few people, but they're welcome to come in, and maybe it will be the new Tuesday night show, I don't know. So I think I'm communicating that to the people that we're going to do it, but secondarily to that, I've said that no major piece of legislation or matters of contention for a smaller group or something of such massive interest to all will be decided on during this period. So we'll just put this to the staff team to accelerate this as much as we can. Are you fine with that, Neville and Norm?
I'm fine with that, but I did finally get to my electronic notes, and I have one other question or suggestion.
Please.
Good. So on page 62, I'm reading this and I'm wondering, is there a circumstance and a need to, so page 62, 11.3, to consider a situation where maybe no one is able to go to the council chambers and everyone's electronic?
Sorry, you're under 11B?
3, sorry.
11.3.
Yeah, page 62 of the agenda package, page 9 of the bylaw, I guess, 11.3. All council members or committee members, other than the chair, may.
Right.
So is there a situation where we need to, for whatever reason, I don't know, the council chamber no longer exists, we need to do something electronic? It's something we might not have thought of, but we might think of now.
Well, the problem is that when the emergency is over, when the provincial state of emergency is no longer in effect, Section 128 of the Community Charter will come back into play, and that section requires exactly what this says. It requires that the chair of the meeting, there has to be a location for the meeting. Normally, there has to be a location. So the location is always council chambers. There has to be, so the meeting has to, that's the location where the public, in normal times, can go to see and hear, or see or hear, the participants, the council taking part in the meeting. So there has to be a location, there has to be a chair running the meeting from there, and there has to be an officer of the municipality at that location. That's the way the section currently reads. Whether or not they'll amend that coming out of the emergency, I don't know, but this is worded to meet the statutory requirements of that section. If they change that, then there would be certainly a ground upon which we would want to re-examine that. There used to be a ground, I can remember when I worked at the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District, there was a provision in the Local Government Act for regional districts to hold essentially an emergency meeting. It could take place anywhere, anybody could be everywhere. I had one circumstance where I did that, and they were all at UBCM in Victoria, and I was in Pemberton, and we had an emergency meeting on the phone. That provision, I couldn't find any similar provision in the regulations attached to the community charter. I think it was supplanted by Section 128 when the charter was updated not too long ago, in 2015, I think. So the short answer, after that long-winded explanation of my apologies, is that we can't really do anything about the requirement that you see in Section 11B at this point in time, other than during the emergency, it's irrelevant. We can all be in different places. That's my understanding. There's a set of guidelines that the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing is supposed to be sending out, they were supposed to send it out today, having to do with these changed rules. I didn't see anything come across my inbox today from them, but I'll follow up on that and clarify whether or not there even needs to be, during the state of emergency, for example, Ron sitting in the council chambers running the meeting with Pam as an officer in attendance. So I will get some clarity on that in the days ahead, but at this point in time, I don't think it's a requirement. But when it all ends, we'll need section 11B or 11.3 of our bylaw to read as it reads before you now.
Okay.
All
Fair
right,
enough. Yes, fair enough. What made me think of this was, what if we're in permanent lockdown like many other places in the world? How would we actually do this? Because I have family in South Africa that's locked down. If you live in Italy, there's local government forced to stop. So, but you've explained that in an emergency, people make sure that you can still meet. That was largely my question was.
Yeah, I think during the emergency that Ron could run this meeting from his living room, but I need to get clarity on that, and I'll let you know.
all right. Are you good with that, Councillor Abbott?
Yep.
Good, can you take your hand down then? And any other questions by anybody else? There being silence, then I will presume that we're through the discussion. And this is the last time, folks, before I call a motion, because this is the final reading. So I am calling the motion on this piece of legislation. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Or how about if they raise their hand?
Well, then everybody'd have to go live and we'd see what Jamie's really wearing. So I tell you what, how about if we do this, put your hand up on the hand up thing. Councillor Baines in favor of it.
Sorry, I forget who are the two.
Oh, sorry, it's Councillor Abbott and Councillor Cunliffe for the two voters. Before everybody goes live, so thank you, Councillor Cunliffe is a yes. Councillor Abbott, can you go yes? Or put your hand up. He's turned his mic off, but I can hear. Councillor Abbott, can you say yes?
No, he's muted. He needs to raise his hand.
Councillor Abbott, can you raise your hand, yes, for approval?
Can you, Ron, can you unmute Councillor Abbott, or can Carla?
No, I can't.
Let me try it. Let me try on mine.
The host of the meeting should be able to mute and unmute everybody.
Unmute all. Okay, I'm going to press the unmute all, and we're going to see if we collapse. Nothing.
Okay, I think I'm back now.
Okay. All right.
So,
Okay. So, Councillor Abbott, you were on mute. You're the vote.
I know that, and I could not unmute it, and I cannot get back to the screen for some reason. So I don't know if I need to sign back in. I could hear everyone, but I cannot get back to the minute screen, and I couldn't unmute myself. So my vote is yes. I could go try sign in again, unless someone can explain why I can't get back to it.
Do you have in your bottom tray an icon that looks like a video camera?
No, all I have is I can go through the various files I've got on my computer, like the PDF I was following along, but I cannot get back to the meeting navigation thing.
Try Alt-Tab.
Alt-Tab. Hang on. Alt-Tab gives me some, the alt tab gives me something flashingly, but I can't hold it. Ah, so much for technology. If you guys can still hear me, I think I'll have to sign into the meeting again.
Yeah, we can hear you and see you.
You're good from our perspective.
Okay, well, let's just try that. But I can't mute and unmute. I'll be very quiet,
Okay, let's,
and I'll only speak when appropriate.
that's fine, you can be as noisy as you like. Let's just finish this last piece of business. It was to you for the last one to vote for.
He said yes.
Did he say yes? Thank you.
I already said, I did say yes.
Good. Councillor Cunliffe, you've got your hands up. Do you have a question? Oh, no, that's the vote, so you're good. So this legislation is now passed, and the other councillors now are live with votes. That's correct, isn't it, Peter?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit redundant because of the order today, but we're good on all levels now.
Okay, so everybody's a voter. Okay, next piece up then is item number 3, which is public participation. There is none. However, former Mayor Burr emailed me today, and I'll seek guidance from this on you, CAO. If he chose not to be here, but he had 3 points that he wanted to be read in. We could alternately do this as correspondence and call it that. What do you think?
It would probably be good to have with the on-table correspondence with all the other items that Carla could put together and attach after the fact as on-table correspondence.
She did not copy it to anybody, and this has got, the 3 points he's got are, okay, 3 points. One is the trail closures. Number 2 is the funding bylaw, whatever that is, in yesterday's notice. And the third, as the mayor, am I concerned about the budget with respect to parking meter revenue, and am I certain the parks will be closed in August and September?
So why don't
I consider that as read in, as public participation, and we'll respond to him.
yeah, I mean, technically, why don't you agree to accept it as on-table correspondence?
Okay.
You can speak to his point when you get to speaking about each of those topics during the course of the meeting, along with any other points that were raised by other people who have written in to council recently.
Thank you very much. Then just for a pause, Carla, can you put former Mayor Burr as part of the on-table correspondence? Thank you very much. Okay, we're past that since there is nobody here. And then this is a readout, and this is a declaration that this is the opportunity for persons who consider they are affected by intermunicipal TNS business license agreement bylaw number 572/2020 and number 2, intermunicipal TNS business license bylaw number 573/2020 to make representation to councils. Unfortunately, they can't, and we're done there. Delegations, there are none, which then brings us to the review and approval of the minutes of the prior meeting. And the first one up to be March the 3rd, 2020, which on your package is page number 5. So if everybody could look to that, and if you've got a change or you want to go on that, I see Councillor Barmere, you're first up. What is your comment?
Do I get to vote now?
Yes, you can vote. Put your hand down.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, back to the minutes, which is on page 19 of 204. No, sorry, wrong one. Try that, page 15 of 2. Page 5, there it is. God, they're all looking the same. Page 5 of 204, thank you very much. CFO. Okay, good. I had no changes, and Councillor Barmere, I think this was you or Councillor Abbott, that we're nicely showing the revisions in the copies now with the red highlighted area. Okay,
I don't think it was me.
good, so let's, is everybody good?
Yeah, I just want to
Okay,
tell everyone that I'm just telling everyone that thanks to Nai's helpful text, I'm back on. And if anything else happens to minimize their screen, I'll experience what I did. So thanks, man.
all right, so, thank you, that's okay. Councillor Barmer is in favor of the minutes. Let's do it the other way. I'm presuming all are in favor of the March the 3rd minutes on page 205. We start on page 205. If that you are fine with them, count. You are fine with the minutes as is, so I'm going to presume everybody is, unless you say otherwise now.
I'm good.
Good, we're all done on that one, so all in favor of those minutes, which brings us to the minutes of March the 17th, which is page 15 on your package, which is also a very short one. I think we can speed through this quickly. I believe everybody will be fine with that. If you are not, say so now. There is no opposition.
Sorry, Ron, just give me a second. I'm still trying to flick back and forward. I had a couple of things. I think there were business arising. Just give me a second.
Okay, tell me when you're ready.
Okay, I think what I have is business arising on both those minutes, so we get to the next comment.
Okay, you're good, thank you. So back to March 17th then. Did we do this, Carla? I'm running confused here.
No.
No, all right. It's a very short agenda. I'm presuming everybody's in favor those, and will assume so, unless you tell me now. Anybody want to change? There being none, those minutes are accepted as well, which brings us to the special meeting of March 24th, which is on page 19, and they're a bit lengthier. I have no changes. If I'm going to presume nobody else has any changes, but if they do, please advise your suggestions now. There being none, I'll presume.
Sorry, Ron, just give me a second.
That's okay.
I marked up the PDFs with some comments, and I'm trying to page through to my comments. Okay, yeah, on the, and I may have misread through this, page 21. Move in second that until through the COVID pandemic, until further notice, there's a list of the following things: Lions Bay Beach parking lot, Kelvin Grove Beach, Kelvin Grove parking lot. Should it not say Lions Bay Beach, Lions Bay Beach as well as the parking lot, or Lions Bay Beach Park, I guess?
Let's hold that one, Councillor Abbott. I had the same thought, but I thought maybe the CAO just, I was confused, but I had the same thought. CAO, do you have a point on that, why the beach was not included on that short list?
I think it was because,
Could have just been me.
I think I had already ordered that the beach be closed, or the beach park, but I don't know, I'm not having too many things going on, and I don't remember exactly. Let's add that to the list, Lions Bay Beach Park.
Okay, so let's put that at the top, Carla, above Lions Bay Beach parking lot. Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Anything else?
Yeah, I think that was the one correction. The rest was non-matters arising and stuff, so we'll go on.
Matters arising, we bring it up. All right, so then we'll conclude on this then. So, excuse me, for the minutes of March 24th, other than the amendment with the beach park, I will presume that in this unique situation that everybody's in approval with the minutes as amended. And if you are not, please speak now. There being no disagreement, those minutes are accepted. thank you. Which brings us to business arising, and I know Councillor Abbott, you've got something. What is that?
Be with me.
Sorry, while Councillor Abbott is looking, can I hear a sound coming from one of you. I see Fred and Neville unmuted as well as Ron, but I'm just wondering if there's something in the background, Councillor Bain or Councillor Abbott, that is making a noise. It almost sounds like machinery.
It's dead silence in the council chamber. Oh,
It went silent now when Councillor Bain muted his mic. So I think there was some, I don't know, maybe it was just interference on the connection, I'm not sure, but I don't hear it anymore.
Is it back now?
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
it is.
Yeah.
I hear nothing here, but
It's
only
like-
mine is muted.
It's almost like breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like Darth Vader. I think Fred might have just morphed.
It tends to go away when Fred unmutes,
Or mutes.
the other way around.
Okay,
Okay, so I'll go through what I thought out for business arising that's maybe different to the stuff that we intend to talk about the trails. On page 13, volunteer week. Are we reconsidering that deadline, postponing it now, or the next meeting, but it's probably not far away from something we should be considering?
I'm not understanding Councillor Abbott, what you're saying. Just a second, Neville.
Sorry, on page 13 of 204.
Page 13.
So, yeah, point number 15, reporting out from the process of the meeting, we spoke about Curly Stewart, sorry, not Curly Stewart, we've got a citizen of your extension will be announced at volunteer week in April. I'm wondering if volunteer week certainly is something we should be considering postponing sooner rather than later.
I've advised the community in the update tomorrow that the Easter egg hunt and volunteer week is canceled. Sorry, I did it unilaterally.
Further discussion in close when we're talking about the actual awards, if you like.
Fair enough.
Not that it's a close.
Can I just jump in quickly? I think that we had discussed postponing volunteer week, and that's the hopes, that it's a postponement and not a pure full cancel, so we'll just take it as it comes.
Okay.
Thank you. I had one more. On page 10 of the same set of minutes, the Metro Vancouver Woodland bylaw. Do we have a report back from what was decided at Metro, or was that somehow sidelined? Did we get to that conclusion in that meeting? Question for me.
I think that's something was on your list of mayor's reports, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Could we get that this evening?
I'll apprise you in the mayor's report.
Oh, it is already this evening. Okay. All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other business arising from the other councillors? Councillor Cunliffe, your hand's up.
I'll take that down.
Councillor Abbott, take yours down too. Thank you. All right, so that brings us to unfinished business. And the first one is mine, which is the Minister of Public Safety and the substantially the highway noise. I'll say this about that and then make a suggestion. I was getting a little tired of the runaround from the provincial government. And when the contact, the last one I had, who was a senior person, didn't get back to me for a month and a half, and then went on holidays, I sent a rather terse note to that person. And a day later, if not the same day, I got a response back that substantially, by this time the people were being redeployed. So she bailed from the scene but gave me one of her subordinates, who is RCMP and who I've been in contact with, and is incredibly supportive of assisting us as best they can in noise reduction through our area. And there was a couple of things we traded back and forth, contact names, numbers, what this person was going to do, what we were going to do. It appears the starting piece is that he highlighted the documentation and gave me the link to do with the village and the Modi agreement on the highway. And I understand it's several hundred pages long. And I have not attended at it. I'm not even sure if I'm capable of looking at it. At this point, I'm not prepared to give it to staff to look at it because we've got other things to do. So I think on balance, we now have the right contact person, the right person who's willing to help us. And they've given us the information where we can see, for example, if I draw a hypothetical situation that we've talked about, the soundproof asphalt, within this document, I presume I'm going to find Modi's commitment to maintain it. And yet, for myself, I've seen them put regular asphalt in place in the last year. So I think we're probably going to, I can't see handing this back to staff anytime soon. I'm not sure I can convene any committee to look at this just yet. So I think on balance, what I'm prepared to do on this one is to just put it in limbo, keep in contact with the person in the province, and know that as we become into more normal times, this will be addressed. Or I guess even if I was to pitch this to the infrastructure committee, is this something they wanted to look at? And I don't know, I can't answer that. I'll defer to any thoughts that council members have. My recommendation is we just let it sit for the time being. Councillor Barmayer, your thoughts?
Well, I do think that might make some interesting reading for the infrastructure committee. It'd be a nice read for them and some decent feedback, I suspect.
Fair enough. When they convene, I'll make this one of their topics. So everybody wants to talk. Okay, so we'll hold that one. Councillor Barmayer, CAO, you're next up.
Public Works Manager Jaffer has received some information. He was copied on a response to one of our residents with respect to noise reduction pavement. And maybe now you could fill council in on what that entailed and what concerns or doubts we have about that information.
Yeah, so the area manager for Modi that's responsible for Lions Bay has advised that Miller Capilano is performing the regular routine maintenance required for sound reducing pavement, and that happens once every 120 days, and it consists of vacuum sweeping or mechanical sweeping of the highway. I'm not sure if any of the council members have ever seen a sweeper sweeping the center and the speeding, or the center and the fast lane, or the slow and the fast lane on the highway. I have seen them doing curbs and gutters, but I've never seen them sweeping the actual road, the highway.
I've seen them doing the curves and the ends too, but not the rest. Thank you very much, Councillor, Public Works Manager Jaffer. I think that I think we're on this one. The provincial representative was also trying to make sure we've got the right Modi person. It appears you've got that, so maybe you and I can, share that with me and I'll share it with them so that he's not wasting any time. There was also, I can pass on here too, this individual is more creative. He'd suggested at least 3 different ways to slow traffic that have been successful in other areas too, which were modifying barriers, sight lines and stuff like that. So I think the piece here is, I think we're, for me, since my my inauguration, it's the first time I felt that we're actually making some progress on this topic. So again, but my proposal is that as a busy work project on the side of the desk, I'll keep working on it, keep everybody posted with it. And as we make a breakthrough, fine, and perhaps we can bring this to the IC. So Councillor Abbott, you're next up.
Yeah, I had one other thought. I know some of the people who were on the hardware committee have left the village, but I can't remember the full list. Maybe it'd be a good idea, rather than try to page through 400 pages, get someone who was on that committee with their recollections, and maybe they can help narrow us in on the solution. And then, you know, the observation I've made many times, that new noise reduction highway asphalt is actually now noisier than the normal stuff. And it was never like that before.
Okay, well, I tell you what, why don't we, I see where we're going, I agree. I think the issue is twofold. One, having qualified minds. I mean, if this is the documentation, which I thought that, I didn't know that it existed, because I think over the years that I've been sitting around the chair that I am, that, you know, there really was never any paperwork that anybody could ever find. Well, the guy sent me the link with the document, so we got it. So I think my suggestion is we just keep it as on the side of the desk for the time being. Should infrastructure committee reconvene in the meantime, let's see if they're interested in that, and at that time the other council members can weigh in too. Councillor Bain, you are next up.
There, I got it on mute. Yeah, I got a couple of thoughts. I don't think the IC is going to be reconvening anytime soon until there's a big change in the COVID-19 issue. So on the shelf is probably as good as it's going to be for that. The other thing I was kind of wondering about this sweeping business, that's the first I've ever heard about it, and I haven't seen it, but it you know, I don't want to discuss the whole issue here, but I do kind of wonder that if it's noisy now because fines have been eradicated from the silent pavement, and it's more tire to aggregate than there used to be. Just a thought, but I don't know. You could just leave it at that if you like.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Public Works Manager Jaffra.
So with respect to Councillor Bain's comment, it's basically voids within the aggregate material that absorb sound, and over time brake dust and tire dust and debris fills those gaps and has to be vacuumed out in order to retain the sound deadening quality. Notwithstanding the current workload that we all have, Your Worship, I would like to be forwarded that link so I can try and put it on my list.
Yeah, and you want to stick your arm out and show me not the tattoos, but the list of things to do? Okay, all right, I will make a note to myself to, I mean, the information's not proprietary. I haven't copied everybody because I think we were getting a lot of emails in, we're getting a lot more now. But if you want to get it, I will send it I'll send a string actually, so that everybody can see what we're doing. And, but then just hold it in the back of your mind that it's one of these things to do whenever we choose to do it. So I think it should stay on the action list. With the amendment, Carla, if we could put Mayor McLaughlin in contact with Province of BC. And then for further action, it'd be maintain contact. So I'll have that off to everybody by the end of the weekend. I thought that was one of the victories I'd had. I was so tickled with that. Next one up, mine again too. For former Mayor Burr, I've responded to him, that's in the correspondence, that's a strike, please, Caroline. And for Mr. and Mrs. Class, who are adjacent to the proposed Esplanade at Brunswick Point, along with another resident, we didn't owe them correspondence, but I wanted to keep in touch with them. I've since met with them personally, and I will write to them when I get a chance before the next council meeting, and council will be able to see that. So we'll keep that one on for now. And that brings us to staff reports, starting with CFO Rook. Is your hand stop twitching now? Good. All right, so dear in your hearts, the budget, which is on page 23 of your package. Councillor Abbott, are you good between screens and you're ready to go?
Sorry, Ryan. I just need to understand where Nye gets the thumbs up thing from, that I wouldn't have to keep unmuting your mic.
I'll take the thumbs up is good. All right, thank you. Okay. Pardon?
I just speak, they'll be able to.
Oh, yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
It's big sound. Oh, no, it's too loud.
So,
You are live.
I'm just presenting this will be the final look at the 2020 budget, and at the next meeting on April 7th, I'll be bringing the 5-year plan for first and second reading. The biggest change in this budget from the last time you saw it at the March 17th meeting was I put into effect the decisions that we make on Tuesday's meetings. So I've removed the meter revenue, and I've reduced the parking fine revenue. I've added some additional bylaw enforcement, and I've removed the meter costs. So that's all in the budget that follows. And as a result of that, we actually now, if you go to page 25, we had about a $35,000 surplus. Now we're sitting at a small deficit of $2,000 with the tax rate at 3%. And of course, that excludes all of the supplementals that we will, I guess, be discussing next. So I wasn't sure if there were any questions on the departmental. I highlighted in yellow the big changes that I've made.
The hand comes up, ask them to tell. Okay.
Councillor Abbott?
Councillor Abbott, you have a question?
I do, it helps when you unmute your mic, too many buttons and too much device. Thanks, guys. I do have a question on items highlighted in yellow, parking meters. So it would seem the change is to assume no revenue from parking meters for the year. Is that really appropriate, or do we all think we're not going to put them in at any point in the summer? Shouldn't we just guess at half, 60% or whatever is more appropriate?
I think the reason I did that was just to be conservative, because we really don't know how long it'll last. I mean, even if it gets better, we may choose to still keep them closed. There's nothing precluding us from, if in August we do want to put them in, if we can. We're not sure if they would be willing to put them in just for a couple of months, in which case we would just have that added revenue offset by the cost of the meters. So I thought I would rather have a budget that was a little light on revenue than a budget that was too heavy on revenue. So we could make that decision and have it, and still put them in if we needed to later on.
Okay, fine, just conservative budget choice, I guess, or estimate. I would have thought we could just cut it in half, but that's fine, I'm okay with it.
Good. Any other questions, Councillor Abbott?
No, I think that's it.
Yeah, just giving free time. Thank you very much, Councillor, CFO Rook. Everybody's a councillor tonight. So just my quick take on this. I think the CFO, I approve of the ultra conservative parking meter view, and I think I like it. I think the parking fine revenue she's also reduced as well too. Well, it's in the line of the budget, but we'd achieve much more. I think we're paving kind of, paving the unknown here, and I appreciate her conservative viewpoint. I think that, just for her to go back to, so I think on that piece, I'd like her to make a comment on the bylaw service.
Yes, the bylaw service. So I assumed, I put in an additional amount for them to work
This is page 33.
on page 33. What my, I had them basically starting this weekend, which they may or may not do. It was just to have a figure in there. And for, 2 14-hour days, Saturday and Sunday. So it worked out to 28 hours a week from now until they would normally start. And it was about additional $6,400. But there's flexibility there. If we decide, you know, we'd like them, for example, we probably won't have them in this weekend, but if we wanted more hours, it could be weather dependent, we could have them in on a Friday. It was just to get an estimate of a number of what an additional 5 weeks of bylaw coverage would cost, because obviously this situation is quite fluid. So as needed, they are available for most weekends, and one bylaw officer may be available during the week. So I sort of envisioned it as something we just, the CAO and I just, you know, talked about kind of on a week-to-week basis, weather dependent as well.
Any questions on the bylaw piece, bylaw services? Okay, then CFO will ask you to go to the proposed capital supplement requests in the A category and the B category, the A starting on page 43.
Just a question.
Councillor Barmera, what's your question?
I guess I wonder if do we need the additional bylaw? Is that actually something we've agreed to do?
I'll pause and let's go around the horn. So the question is, based on the presentation that the CFO did, which is on page 33, and that ramped up an extra 28 hours per week for the period of March 28th to May the 3rd, representing approximately $6,400. And Councillor Barmere is questioning whether that is something we want to do. I'll go through rotation on this one and start with Councillor Bain. Are you fine with this presentation with early bylaw?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cunliffe, are you fine or opposed to the extra bylaw during this short period?
Yeah, I think it's prudent to, you know, have the option, and we'll have to weigh it as it comes. We just have no idea what to expect, so.
Thank you very much.
I'm okay with it.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Abbott in just a second. CFO, so let's say we tried 2 weekends with these people and vigilant that they are, and everything's just wonderful. Are we under contract to keep them on for the other period, extra period, or no?
No, what we do would we hire with them, and we would just tell them we didn't have any hours for them that week. And I'll also be speaking about this when I go to the supplementals. We actually had $6,000 in for additional time throughout the summer, and I would suggest we remove that and just sort of keep this amount if we need it now, and then if we don't, we could also use it in the summer. Because as we know, this situation is very fluid, so the advantage of these bylaw officers, they are available with quite short notice, so I think it's going to be a case where we're literally almost deciding on a week-to-week basis what type of coverage we may or may not need. But it's not automatic. It isn't that they're automatically coming in every weekend. I've already told them we no longer need them for this weekend, and that was fine.
Okay, very good. Councillor Abbott, your views?
I kind of thought, although I don't think we actually took a vote on that, I kind of thought most of us, or all of us, had agreed that bylaw parking, bylaw enforcement was probably the key thing we needed to do at the moment. And so I think, yeah, absolutely, we should have these available hours. If there's only 6 or 8 grand, it'll be money well spent.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Abbott. I'm going to go to the CAO in just a second. I actually echo your views, and I'm compounding my echo since the CFO tells me it can be, the people can be variable. If we choose not to have them, they're not there. But I think from my perspective, given what we're doing, having a bylaw officer presence up front is quite important to what we're doing. And I'll come back to you in a second, Councillor Barmier, but CAO, you're up.
Yeah, I was gonna get to it when we get to talk to the discussion about trails and all of that, but I did have some discussions today with staff from the province in a couple of different areas, one on trails and one from Modi. And something to keep in mind is with the order today, granting the bylaw officers some additional powers. They don't, just so it's clear, they don't have the power to fine or arrest anybody or anything like that. All they do under the order, it would be to provide additional, or, provide education, compliance requests of people, et cetera, and in respect of gatherings of large numbers of people, would be reporting that to the provincial health officers and asking them, providing them with the information. And then it's up to the provincial health officers to decide how they want to deal with that, whether they have their own enforcement staff, or whether they would call upon RCMP, or whether they would request the bylaw enforcement officers to perform any other enforcement functions. So when I'm thinking about this or talking about this, I'm thinking about Brunswick Beach in particular. If there were large gatherings of people at Brunswick Beach, because controlling the foreshore is something that's a little bit problematic, then they would have the ability to provide information to the Public Health Office, find out what they would want to do, and then Modi would then be agreeable to working with us to, if necessary, in order to support a closure of Brunswick Beach because of gatherings, then they would work with us in terms of closing the parking facility at Brunswick Beach. So there are potential expanded roles for the bylaw officers to some extent, and I think as Councillor Abbott noted, parking will be important in whatever roles or whatever direction is of council goes forward, both in the short term and in the long term as the weather gets nicer, and we'll see what happens, I guess. But I think that it would be prudent to ensure that there's sufficient room in the budget for additional bylaw officer hours, both in the short term and perhaps over the course of the summer. I'm not sure that using the 6,000 from that was sort of left out there for later now, it might be needed later as well. So I don't know, just a few thoughts.
There we go. All right, so just in perspective, because we still got lots going here tonight, and we are talking about $6,000 about. So, Councillor Abbott, you're next up.
Okay, I'll just keep it brief. Just for clarity, my previous comments were based on parking only, and I think we should budget the additional if it's purely just for parking at this time. And I agree, not necessarily spend what we might still need later in the summer, but I was only referring in my approval of this additional budget, I was purely thinking about additional parking enforcement.
Good.
Anything else would be a different discussion.
All right, so to encapsulate, you would like the budget to stay as is.
Correct.
Thank you. Councillor Bain, I'm going to go to you. I'll take one more on this because we've got a lot to move on. Then I'm going to close with Councillor Barmier. Councillor Bain?
Okay, I just had a simple one. It has to do with the general fund emergency management, material supplies and equipment. I had put in $1,500 for trails upgrading for emergency evacuation. speaking with the CFO, she told me it would be blended in amongst some other things. So I'm just wondering if we could have some sort of a breakdown, not at the moment, but sometime afterwards, so that we can just see how much actually, or when the stuff got spent and all that. It's just, the way it's written in here, I don't see that it's easy to track and could get lost easily.
All right, so here, thank you very much, Councillor Bain. Here's what I propose on this. In your half-year reporting, CFO, if you could draw attention to that piece,
Okay.
and that's not too far away. There we go. So back to the bylaw piece, which is Councillor Barmeyer started this. So it would appear, Councillor Barmeyer, that the parking piece is a strong one with the majority of councillors. Are you fine with the budget as it stands?
I just didn't want there to be any confusion about how much authority this person has. So parking tickets is ultimately going through the issue.
Okay, so I'll take this as you're fine in that, and we'll move on with the budget then. Thank you very much. And back to the CFO, as we drill down on the proposed CapEx and supplemental requests. And again, I'll split this in the A category and the B category, the A on page 43.
Yes, so these are the operating proposals. There's nothing new here except for the asset management, which we'll be discussing in closed, and the building inspection services that we'll also be discussing in closed. And then on to the next page. Again, not too many changes. I guess the biggest one is the Lions Bay Beach Park Revitalization Project. We heard back and we did not get the grant. We were unsuccessful. So as I had mentioned in this, we do have sufficient funds from a rebudget for the kayak rack and the fundraising for the playground. We can still proceed with the kayak rack and the playground, which had always been our kind of our path number 2 if we were unsuccessful with the grant, which has occurred. The only other thing I'd point out is with the EV charging station, we're still waiting for the grant, which I believe may be coming out in March, although I think everything's delayed right now. We still haven't determined what the annual operating costs will be, and that will be an item that needs to be budgeted. But as previously mentioned by Councillor Baumeier, it's looking like by the time we would install this, it would be 2021. But it will be important for us to know what the annual operating costs are at that time, so it can form part of the budget as well. And the only other two other comments, the bike park, we've done a little bit of research on that in terms of the liability. There is some liability concerns, so I wasn't sure if council wanted to keep that in there. And then on the emergency generator, we just had sort of some added comments we wanted to make about that, and I was going to pass this on to Public Works Manager, Mr. Jaffer, to make some comments about the emergency generator.
If Councillor Barmeyer and Councillor Abbott will just hold you for a minute and then let the Public Works Manager go first.
Sure.
Councillor, no, never raised Councillor. Public Works Manager Jaffer.
So basically what I wanted to do is talk about the quick history on this. This has been on the budget for several years now. We've spoken to 2 engineers and we've had 3 separate contractors. The gist of the issue in using power from the Platt building is stepping it down from 3-phase to single phase. 2 of the contractors I spoke to said that would be a very difficult and unusual proposition. They did not want to try and bid or provide a quote for that. Both the engineers are okay with the 80% of panel load. The engineer that Councillor Abbott had forwarded the information to said in his response was, during an emergency, you don't want to be limited, and things can take a turn for the worst. You want to have the power that you need for, that you've planned for. You don't want to take a chance. Essentially, what I'm saying is that it's time to move on with this, and either yay or nay, we should make a decision.
And I just wanted to add as well that even if we had an engineer who said we could connect the CLAT, there would be a cost to that. And it could very well equal what the cost of a generator for the hall would be. And we're just getting more and more concerned that we don't have backup power here, especially in a situation like that. Like as of now, it isn't an emergency that requires power, but it just sort of highlights that things can happen. We did struggle a lot when we had that 5 or 6 hour power outage about a year ago with BC Hydro, that we actually did a bit of damage to our server, even using just a remote backup generator. So staff are just concerned that this seems to keep dragging. And I think at the end of the day, even if it was decided we could hook up to the CLAT, which all indications are we can't, the cost of doing that could very well be the same amount as it would cost us to buy a generator now.
Thank you very much. Well, let me just say, I think for those who have been around this table, this generator talk has been dead to me for some years, and I wish we had a new one already. So I hear what everybody has to say. There's two on the rotation, which is first up Councillor Barmeyer and then Councillor Abbott, and I'm not sure what you're going to talk about, but I will come back to the generator last. Councillor Barmeyer, you're first up.
Yeah, two things. First thing, in terms of the EV charger operating costs, part of the grant would cover the first 5 years of operating maintenance and support. That was kind of the intent of it. In terms of power, the idea would be that it would be revenue neutral. So just in a real tight nutshell. In terms of the generator, the civil works alone to get the power from the CLAT building to the municipal hall would probably pay for a new generator. So I don't think it's, I think this is a...
Thank you very much.
I feel like it'll keep going in circles on that.
Good. Councillor Abbott?
Yeah, so I also had two things. My hand was raised a little earlier when I mentioned the beach park. I think can we get this on the next agenda? In the previous meeting I said I had some ideas, and some residents that approached me about ways to try and get things done without a grant, more than just the bike rack. So if you want to put that on the agenda, I'll try to bring some thoughts and get some more input from others. The second thing on the generator, when Public Works Manager when I shared those the information with me, I did notice there was two quotes. One of them included the foundations and the other did not. And by looking at the numbers that we're seeing here now, the $60,000, that was the one that did not include foundations. So you had two different quotes, and I think we should be budgeting for the higher one, unless someone believes the foundations, the structural is going to cost us.
The intent was to do the foundation internally with that one. Alta Lake had identified a $5,000 cost to do the foundation. Our hope was to get the cost as reduced as possible, just to get this over and done with. So we agreed to do the foundation internally.
Okay. That sounds fine. And just the higher one that had the foundations was 30 grand more, not 5 grand in the quotes you showed me. So if you've got it covered in that budget, fine. Otherwise, I was going to suggest to make sure you bump it up a bit.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott.
Thank you very much. So I'm showing 3 hands up on the screen. I think we've dealt with all of you. So Councillor Barmeyer, if you're the last one, take your hand down. I will close on this and ask for final comments from the CAO and the councillors. As I take this, the budget is here. The generator, that's with staff. You now have we've had it for a long time. The beach park, and I chastised the CAO when he phoned me to deliver bad news on Friday, and I asked, where's the sanctity of not delivering bad news on Friday? But that didn't work so well. So I've had a little time to simmer down on this one. I agree entirely with Councillor Abbott that we need to regroup on this. Our problem is that it's the wrong moment just now to gather people. I think that my sense here is that this renovation is, from my perspective, would be a big part of the joy of our 50th birthday, which is next year. So I'd like to be going forward on that one. And so my thinking here is that, and the question here is about the budget, not doing more work just yet. Because I think if we could, again, either through the infrastructure committee or having a call to residents, asking them to participate, just using the example of the washroom, which the number we had in the budget was $350,000. I think as homeowners, we would just simply not pay that number. So I think we can do it for less. I don't know what that number is, but I'm also cognizant of the time and the times and our manpower situation. So my suggestion here is that we keep everything on the list here relative to this. I think unless things have changed, Mr. Jaffer, the kayak and the playground are kind of a late summer, early fall project, assuming the world is somewhat normal, Em?
Assuming the world is somewhat normal, yes.
Okay, fine. So we'll leave that at that. I think that the CFO has brought up the bike park. And it's a $5,000 piece that we're going to take out of surplus. I would be quite happy to leave it on here, and there are issues, and there's the construction, and we don't want people in the area now. I'd much rather just keep it in and revisit this somewhere down the road and give hope to our residents that it might happen. And I don't know what the insurance costs and the liabilities are, but I really just don't want to quash it right now. And on that point alone, just on the bike park, we'll go around the councillors to see if I'm on side or off side. So I'll ask the question of I'm just looking down the list, no, the order is here. Councillor Barmere, are you fine with it staying on the list?
I am, and I wanted to expand on this a little further. We've got a pretty large captive audience with this Lions Bay Facebook group. So I'm just wondering if that's a place to share some potential fundraising issues for the park. Just bring it up. It's a really broad net we could cast, and it might spark some interest in fundraising.
Okay, I'm going to hold that thought, and because I think we're going to have to come back to it when we put some gas to this thing. So we'll go with Councillor Bain. Are you fine with it being staying on?
Affirmative.
Thank you. Councillor Cunliffe, are you fine with it staying on?
I am.
Thank you. Councillor Abbott, are you fine with it staying on?
I am.
Thank you very much. So I think we'll keep it as a place mark here, even if we don't do it in this calendar year, and we address it again. And if we come back to more normal times, my hope would be that we revisit this with a smaller group of the community to see what the opportunities are, and that would be in line with the beach park. So there's a CAO, thank you very much, you've been patient. I'll do closing remarks, but you're first up here.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that, there's a lot of moving pieces and considerations that need to go into something like a bike park, especially in a location like that. And I'm just concerned that council's getting too far out in front of this one without having all that homework done, because it may very well be the case that it's not a good location. There's going to be a lot of things to consider, and it's going to take a lot of work and time to put into that. And it's not, I'm just concerned that you're going to be encouraging people for something that may or may not happen. And I think that before you start promising that, with money in a budget, basically says that you're going to do it. I think that it's too soon to say whether or not you can do it. I think that work needs to be done before you go and commit money to something that you don't know if you can do yet.
Thank you very much. I take, and I'll let you counterpoint me on this one. I take the opposite view on this one. The money's coming out of surplus. If we don't proceed, it doesn't go. I'd be happy to, in fact, as I would propose that I write the draft response to the proponent, which is Mrs. Beatty. You overview it, and it will be unable to deal with it at this time. There's a nominal budget in place, and along the lines of when things become more normal, we'd explore it again. I'm waiting for any feedback.
I would say that sounds good to me.
Well, okay, I'm taking silence as the, I mean, it's not a big number. I think
Yeah,
it's,
I'm good with that. Sorry, I'm good with that plan.
all right.
Didn't want to changing.
All right, I think the key piece is that the communication to the community is that this is a work in progress, but not at this time. Councillor Bain.
Peter is muted.
Pardon?
Peter is muted for some reason.
Sorry, I was muted on purpose, Nani.
Oh, okay, there we go. All right, Councillor Bain, you're next up.
Just a quick comment. The CIO's comments are valid and worth considering, but I think if we want to put some horsepower to this thing, I think we can overcome a lot of this stuff, maybe not be in too much of a hurry. And Mayor McLaughlin, the book I just lent you about the tipping point, talks about getting an initiative to go through and what are the pieces involved to make it work. It might be worth a good read at this time if you're willing.
All right, again, I'm stealing part of the CAO's comment. I don't want to get ahead of myself here. It's a budget point that we're allocating here. We're not spending the money and we're not looking for anything soon. I think the recognition to the proponent from the community is that we heard, we listened, the idea seems fine, lots of work to do. We're not ready to put a lot of horsepower to this now. And we don't want the community to at this time either. All right, I think there's nothing on the screen just yet. So I think I will just make a quick conclusion and go to the CFO for final word. So long story short on this, we spent a month and a half faster, better than ever before. On page 46, we really come to the number, which is the approximately $544,000 from reserves. This is an extremely meaty and consuming capital expenditure and operational expenditure list. I would be ecstatic if we finished all of these things this year. In my heart of hearts, I just don't see it. So I'm quite comfortable with putting this forward to the CFO on behalf of council, that we go with this and that we do our best efforts, and I hope things stay no worse than they are now. And I'll go to Peter before the CFO to close. Peter?
Yeah, I'm just noticing that right above the total there, we've got geohazard mitigation of Alberta Creek debris flow risk to Mountain View. We just got a quote the other day, and which involved both engineering, sort of preliminary estimate, engineering and construction of works. Just if I want to just ballpark it, just ballpark it at $100,000. So that's something that you need to probably weigh in on, opine on. Alternatively, it could be, you know, we could look at doing the engineering on it this year, you know, roughly half and half, construction next year, or you could push engineering and construction to next year. But it is something that's been identified as a hazard, as a risk, and the advice that we've received from a professional is that we we ought to address the hazard. And if we don't, then we could be negligent if something happens. Anyways, it's out there. The number is roughly $100,000 for both ends of it. If you want to break it up, figure out when you want to do it. And that's about all I've got to say on it at the moment.
Well, that was a pretty good, that's all I got to say on it.
What page is that? I was trying to follow you here.
What
Page
page?
46.
Page 46, Councillor Barmeyer, if you go right to the bottom, on the left, bottom of the left-hand side.
The next figure, if it's bold, okay, sounds good, right?
It's been silent because there's no number there. So I think,
So the engineering for that is about 57, and the balance would be the construction for a total of 100.
does 100 seem like a good number?
It's the estimate we've received from an engineering company.
Okay. All right then, so let's just nip around with council on this one, and I'm starting to see some light ups here. Quite frankly, I'm not blinking on the 100,000 when it's mitigation work of an identified problem. And I'll conclude as I was before, but let's go around the horn in this one. Councillor Abbott's up first, and then Councillor Barmeyer.
Yeah, so it's one line in a budget and it says to be decided. With that number next to it, we saw it. I would personally like to understand it better, whether it's 100,000 or 57. I don't really have much visibility on what it is and what we intend to do. Is there any way we can pass the budget and revisit this when we will understand it better?
So did I hear you correctly that you were fine with the 100,000, putting it in place, and then we'll revisit it?
No, you heard me incorrectly. I said, is there any way, can we approve the budget the way it is?
Oh, as it is.
And revisit this when we all understand it better?
Okay. Okay. Councillor, well, come. Okay, Councillor Abbott, thank you. Councillor Barmeyer.
Yeah, I just, do we have any more specifics? Which engineering firm is giving us this advice? Is there a report or a letter to some effect, like something technical we can at least have a look at?
Okay, thank you very much. Catches
me off guard. I didn't expect this.
Mr. Jaffer, you're next up.
Do you want to let Peter go first?
You're first up, but I don't care.
Yeah, so what I would suggest is perhaps what we could do is come back, bring something to the next meeting in terms of where this came from and a bit more in terms of specifics, and council can determine whether or not it's something they want to tackle or add on.
Okay, that pushes it off till the 7th. That's fine. All right,
Sorry, subject to anything that Mr. Jaffer or CFO Rook has to say.
Mr. Jaffer?
My thought was to at least put the engineering in. However, that can be deferred as well. This is a hazard that was identified in geohazard report, and essentially what it is a debris hazard that could impact several residences. So, but if CAO De Jong is bringing forward a report, we can identify that in there.
All right, then let's hold it at this, then a report will come forward on the April 7th meeting. Thank you very much. So at this point, I'll semi-close and go to the CFO. And Public Works Jaffer, please take your hand down. Thank you. And so we have the budget here, which on the supplemental request, page 46. So on the TBD, we're going to close our eyes on that one. So 544,446 is a number that will come out of reserves. And per my other comments, I'm fine with that. It's an aggressive program. Staff will bring back the extra supplemental at the next meeting, which will be the Is the first to 3 readings next meeting?
It's first 2 readings.
First 2 readings next meeting, so either it will cut muster or it will not. You have the close, CFO.
Okay, I suspect what I'm going to say we'll have to go around the table again, but first off, this is an unusual budget in that we've never drawn so much from surplus before, and I've brought this to council's attention before. There are a lot of things we have to do, but this isn't sustainable. So we'll be talking more about it when I do the 5-year plan, in which case we'll see what our shortfalls are. I think council's aware of this because we are trying to find alternate ways through land sales of getting more money. And then as we've talked about before, I see this piece, the 5-year plan, coming to the fall strategic planning session as well, just to help council set their strategy and direction in terms of how they want to find additional funds. If you go back to page 25, you can see with these changes, we're actually showing a deficit, which is very unusual. That's before any supplementals. So right now I have a 3% tax increase in here. Another option is for council to consider a higher increase. Obviously, we would never tax enough to cover, the whole 500,000. I'm not suggesting that at all. But maybe we're basically not taxing enough to even cover our basic operational needs, and that's not always a good practice. So there can be additional options of increasing taxes even by 1%. That gives us about another 17,000. It's not so much even the money as the messaging that we're already being very unusual by drawing a lot from surplus to cover our capital needs. But just even on the front page, I have to draw from surplus just to cover our basic needs with no additional at all, which is not good practice. A 1% increase based on the sort of average tax bill of about $2,700 would be about a $30 increase per resident. So it's just something for council to consider.
Thank you very much. We will do a rotation on this one. So the suggestion is that the quick skinny again to repeat, it's an unusual situation. The funding from reserves is quite a big list of stuff. And it likely will not all get done next year. In the current year, probably some stuff to next, or a lot of stuff that will be done. So the CFO is suggesting an increased general tax hike. Councillor Barmere, you're first up, and then I will be calling as I see it. Councillor, everybody's dropping off, okay?
All right. You raised the issue of a deficit showing of $2,100 being unusual. And if we factored the parking revenue back in and took out the additional bylaw enforcement, we wouldn't be in this situation, right?
Right, I think before we had about a 30,000 surplus, but that surplus actually still wasn't enough.
So my point is that what we're experiencing now shouldn't be diluted. It has an impact on our budget. It's having impact on all kinds of economies, whether private businesses or municipalities. We shouldn't just brush that under the carpet. Whether we just talk about it or highlight it somehow, but that's what makes it unusual in my mind. And I understand the surplus or the large draw from reserves. And we got to get some stuff done, so I'm okay with that.
Just before we go on, I think we've had the reserves talk 3 times now, and I think we're acknowledging that's where it is. As you say, Councillor Barmere, even in the last 5 days, we've locked a whole bunch of cash off our budget because of the parking and increased our cost modestly because of the bylaw, and there's our swing right there. I'm sure that not to put words into her mouth, I'm sure by adding another $4,000 into our parking fees, we're balanced, although it's a notional thing. We're skinny here. So I think the piece here is that the CFO is asking whether council would consider an increase of the tax rate. The 10 on infrastructure is where we already are. And so instead of 3, the general tax increase would be 3, 4, well, not 3, 4, 5, or 6, whatever the number is. For me, I would be opposed to that. I think our village would accept it, but I think optically, I'd like to be shown as steady, and I think we need to work through our issues here. And I agree, it's an unsustainable drawing from reserves, and we may be skinnying a lot of projects down next year afterwards. Or we sell some properties and we've got different avenues. It's a card game I'm not at the table at yet just yet, but I'm happy with where we are. So I'm going to go, and the question is, retain the 3% or increase the tax rate for the operational. I'm starting with Councillor Bain. Are you fine as is or increased?
I prefer to keep it at 3. I'm interested in what comes about with the with the Magnesia Creek thing before wanting to throw my hat in on this one, but we'll see where that goes.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cunliffe, are you fine with 3 as it stands, or would you prefer a higher rate?
I say we say 3 as it stands, and the hope is if we do enter into some sort of agreement with the marina for parking, I feel that that deficit could be easily achieved through revenue from them. So I don't think that as modest of an increase as it is, in the climate that we're at, I don't think we need to be asking citizens for any more money, even $30.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barmeyer, 3% or a higher number?
I think people are being asked to maintain their current, lifestyle, and some people may be out of work. We don't know how this is affecting people from personal budgets, so asking for money right now, I don't think it would be palatable.
As it is then?
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Abbott, you're closing out.
So, yeah, I agree. Keep it at the 3%. Now's not the right time to. We already discussed this and effectively published what we thought we were going to do. I don't think we should go adding to it now, certainly not, given where everyone's sort of personal finances might be going at the moment for some people. I also want to keep in mind that we've also taxed 10% additional for infrastructure in the last 2 years, and that's $300,000. And so that's going into reserves, correct? And what we should be doing is spending that on some of these infrastructure items.
Well, there's different ways that we can fund additional capital expenditures. For example, the beach park was declined. There was $250 potential borrowing, I think it was. So there's different avenues to do this. CFO, any further comments on that? No? Are you finding this thing stands then, Councillor Abbott?
Yes, sorry. Yep. Whoops.
Good, thank you very much. All right, so then, subject to anybody advising me otherwise, then I'm going to ask the CFO to bring forward the budget pretty much as you have here, subject to anything else that you may come upon for first and second readings at our next council meeting, and the staff bring forward the Alberta Creek request for council's consideration to be added or deferred at that time. I'll take that as approval by everybody unless there's someone that disagrees, and then we can chat. Okay, that's fine, we are there, and there is your direction, CFO. Which brings us to the second staff report, which, for lack of a better word, we'll call trails. And if you need to find the DPEC's email, take a second to go get it. And Peter will let you lead on this.
What page are we on the agenda?
This is, we're on the second page, staff reports. So it was number 1 was the budget, which we just concluded, and the amendment to the agenda was trails. And,
Okay,
and the reference will be back to the legislation that we passed and the information that Robert put out this afternoon, which is titled, oh, there's so many of them here.
Status of parks and trails locally, provincially, and nationally.
you circulated that in an email?
Yeah.
If I could ask you to briefly summarize the email, I can't actually minimize the Zoom meeting to get into my email without having to sign out of the actual meeting.
And don't do that.
I won't, so if you could just give me a quick summary, that would be helpful, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So, I asked Robert to do a scan basically of what the landscape looked like out there in terms of trails and parks, from national to provincial to regional to local. So he did that, and that's what the report encompasses, noting basically national parks are for the most part closed, with a statement as to the health and safety of Canadians, et cetera, et cetera. So all motor vehicle traffic is closed, suspended. Visitor services remain suspended. Facilities limiting activities to basic critical operations only. Provincial parks, partial closures for health and safety of BC parks, visitors, employees, park contractors, temporarily suspending services, closing facilities in most provincial parks. That's on the BC Parks website. All campgrounds are closed. Temporary measures include suspension of services at marine parks, visitor centers, nature houses, playgrounds, washrooms, days, facilities. Provincial park visitors may continue to use trail and areas where accessible. However, they will be expected to carry out their own garbage and will be responsible for their own safety. Unfortunately, the parking and closure of access in many cases precludes the possibility of anyone actually doing that. Day use services do remain, this is a good example, day use services remain available at a small number of provincial parks. Mount Seymour Provincial Park, access restricted to some lower elevation trails, but parking and road access is closed. Cypress Provincial Park, access restricted to some lower elevation trails, but again, parking and road access is closed. So you can't get there, you can't park, and so effectively, they're closed, even though they say you can actually walk on their trails if you want to. I know somebody who tried to do it and was not successful. Miracle Beach over on the island, Wells Gray Provincial Park. Complete park closures may also be implemented on a case-by-case basis where required. Camping, hiking on provincial, crown, or private lands. So Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture website, talks about, we've got a wonderful product, but for now, please stay home and follow the advice of health authorities. Privately operated trails and recreation sites. So recreation sites and trails BC, their number one priority is the health and safety of our staff, partners, volunteers, and visitors. We are following the advice of provincial health experts, doing our part of COVID-19, effective immediately. RSTBCs, that's recreation sites and trails, is temporarily closing recreation facilities and suspending services at many recreation sites and trails across BC. We are also recommending that people avoid traveling outside their communities for recreation purposes at this time. Our response continues to change based on direction of the provincial health officer. We'll continue to communicate regularly. For now, visitors can expect the following. Recreation trails offer local opportunities for people to get outside. Recreation trails are available for local use at this time. Visitors are reminded of the directives from the public health officer to avoid gathering in groups and to keep at least 2 meters apart from each other when using trails. Trail users are responsible for their own safety and should exercise additional caution and be careful to limit injuries as trails may not be groomed or maintained during this time. And I'm going to pause there for a second because this is someone that I spoke to today, was the regional manager for Recreation Sites and Trails BC for our area, and they are in charge of the Lions Trail. So, as he stated to me, to try to keep trails open, provide safe recreation, they will consider closing trails if a situation is unsafe. In respect of Lions Trail, he said that we would need to monitor and provide them with evidence to support any closure. If closed, it would be closed to everyone, not just non-residents. He said open or closed decisions would preferably be consistent with other trails throughout Lions Bay. So in other words, if we close all our trails, then it adds credence to closing that trail. If we open our trails within Lions Bay, it makes it a little bit more awkward from their perspective. If closed, we would have to enforce. They don't have the resources to enforce. At the end of the day, he said, let's monitor for now, i.e. we monitor, and keep lines of communication open so that if we have issues or there becomes choke points or large gatherings congregating on the trail, then they would want to know about it, and we would provide them with that information and talk about ways like to mitigate that or to consider a trail closure. In terms of alleviating it, he said that signage would be helpful. They're still working at different kinds of signage, and but Public Works Manager Jaffer had previously come up with a design for hiking trails that would be appropriate in terms of social or physical distancing. So that is something that we could do. But that's more or less the update from that conversation. In terms of just continuing on with the report, recreation facilities operated by RSTBC are for the most part closed due to obviously people gathering at facilities and cabins and so forth, so they're closed for the most part. Overnight camping and gatherings are prohibited at all recreation sites, goes on to say. So BC Hydro recreation areas, full closure for reasons that are consistent with the health authority recommendations. This is number BC Hydro recreation facilities and trails that lead off from them. Throughout the province, Metro Vancouver regional parks, partial closure. Statement: Metro Vancouver's paramount commitment is to maintain critical services to the region while protecting the health and safety of our employees, our partners, and the public. All our regional parks remain open, providing important outlets for residents to enjoy the outdoors. That's from Metro Vancouver's website. However, says Robert, when viewing the regional parks advisories of some Metro Vancouver regional park sites, it's clear that some have been closed with a simple statement of closed because of COVID-19, public health safety concerns. So they say they're all open, but some might be closed. Might depend on the circumstances of particular sites. Playgrounds, picnic shelters, tennis courts, parking lots, camping, all those things are closed at regional parks. Lower Seymour Conservation Reserve. Vehicle access to Lower Seymour Conservation Reserve is currently being limited to allow for appropriate social distancing in accordance with Public Health Authority directives and to protect the health and safety of staff. North Shore Municipal Parks, Playgrounds and Trails, North Vancouver Parks, Playgrounds and Trails, partial closure. District and city parks have closed all sports fields from games and practices until further notice. There are rangers out monitoring the fields. If you're found playing on fields, you may be asked to leave. It's not realistic to maintain 6-foot distance between players. This is to protect the health of our kids, families, and our communities, and that's a statement from both District and City of North Vancouver websites. Trails and parks remain open, however, at this time. So that was in, what I read previously was in respect of playing fields. So both City and District of North Vancouver say trails and parks remain open. Playgrounds are closed. West Vancouver Parks, Playgrounds and Trails. This was written before the state of local emergency was rescinded by the minister's order today. So they talk about that, or they talk about their own state of emergency, providing them with broad powers to allow the district to, among other things, enforce closures and cancel business licenses for businesses that are not following the direction of public health officer. Golf courses closed, playgrounds closed, basketball courts closed, skate parks closed, tennis courts closed, parking lots, White Cliff Park, Lighthouse Park, White Lake closed to discourage visitors. The parks are still open, it says in brackets. Parking lot at Glen Eagles Golf Course. People are still trespassing to play golf even though the club and community center are closed. Trails, parks, dog parks, beaches, and the Seawalk are open with the following instructions. Keep a distance of at least 2 meters, avoid public spaces too crowded. To maintain that distance, do not congregate in groups. Do not ignore the advice of health officials. So the report concludes, the situation being monitored frequently, changes occur frequently, and communication should be maintained with the public in all available mediums, etc., etc. So that gives a bit of a scan for council on the state of what's going on with parks and trails locally, regionally, and provincially, as well as nationally. And I think the only other thing I was going to add was the comment that I already alluded to earlier, my conversation with Mr. Recognition that there are a number of interjurisdictional considerations. For example, Centennial Trail runs over Modi, rights of way, our land, school district lands, etc., etc. The ministry has the jurisdiction for the interchange parking area, which we talked about, and there was a recognition that that parking area is more or less exists for the purpose of providing public access to the Brunswick Beach from the province's perspective. So if it became problematic in terms of the numbers of people that are going to the beach when the weather is nice, then we need to advise the ministry, we need to have a joint communication going on with public health officials, RCMP, and Ministry of Transportation, because we would have to rely upon we wouldn't have to rely necessarily upon RCMP. We could potentially rely on our bylaw enforcement officers in these circumstances in terms of that parking area. So aside from that, I guess the other thing, just going back to the Lions Trail conversation that I had with that fellow, we did talk briefly about parking being the crux of the matter, because it always is, every year. It's always the crux of the matter, and it's always an issue. And so his comment was, well, if there are ways in which we can help control the numbers but not close the trail, that would be something that would be seen to be beneficial, because their preference is to keep the trail open. But if it's open for all. And that's, I think, about, I don't think I've got anything else at this point.
Thank you very much, CAO. Got my eye on the clock. This is probably one of the bigger issues tonight. And I don't want to be brief with it, but I'd like to get to the point very quickly. And I would propose that, as I did the other night, I'm going to ask whether you are for and currently the trails are closed. And if I ask you, I'm asking you to say whether you want them to stay closed or open, and that will give us a flavor of what we're talking about, because if it's unanimous one way or the other, then it's a shorter conversation. If we're split, then we're going to discussion. So in no particular order other than where I see on my screen, Councillor Bain, the question is, all the trails open, all the trails closed?
In reconsideration, I would favor that we would have them open, multi-jurisdictional issues and stuff like that. It just makes sense.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cunliffe, would you prefer open or closed as they are now?
This is a tough one. Considering we've closed all the parking and all access, if it means that somebody has to actually make their way in here via transit and or by pedestrian foot, I'm gonna go with open.
Very good. Thank you very much. Councillor Barmere?
Yeah, I think we should open the local trails, but no media release to suggest that. We keep that as tight as we can to ourselves.
There we go. Councillor Abbott, would you like the trails all open or all closed?
Given that we can't actually close them all.
Well, I mean,
don't think,
notionally closed.
and I don't think we actually discussed all the trails last time we looked at this. So I'm safe. I think we need to emphasise the parking and control it another way.
So open then.
Correct.
Thank you very much. Well, this will be a quick piece then. I am opposed. I believe they should be closed. And I'm going to make my points, and then I'll ask again whether everybody wants it open or closed. The points are, in brief order, as the CAO points out, if they're all closed, it adds credence to the other trails as well too. The things I'm seeing from certainly from the feds, the province, and the other municipalities is that things are getting harsher, not easier. The third piece is that I believe that with nobody on the trails, if a guest does turn up, they appear to be very odd and out of sync with the rest of us. I think, as Councillor Cunliffe was saying, for me personally, not being a dog owner, what is the material difference of of a resident going down and walking around Lions Bay Beach, and let's say 3 more residents walking around Lions Bay Beach, and let's say 3 non-residents turn up and walk around Lions Bay Beach? For the sake of argument, we can say that's a horizontal situation. If we go vertical on a trail going up, I've described the same situation, so I'm in conflict to say how we would not allow one, but allow another. I think too, on the next point, is that, we've got, this is primarily from dog owners, and I'm not sure what percentage of the dog owners are, but I think this is a somewhat selfish situation for them, quite frankly. I think that there's as many beachgoers or people that want to play tennis or all the rest of that, and we're delivering a very hard message. And I think that at the end of the day, I believe that our villagers are working very hard to isolate themselves, and we can conjecture whether the virus can be passed on by hairy animals. My information's, and I'm certainly not a guru on this, suggests in fact it can be. So here you on your trail, your hairy animal touches another hairy animal from a non-resident, and you pat both animals, you pat one animal, you've now got the virus, or the potential for it. I'm not making any, issues on that. I'm not a medical person, but that's what I understand. So with that said, I'm quite happy to put forward the request again. If it's a majority, then we'll be asking the CAO to open the trails. So in the order that I did it, you can either make your comment or rethink your comment, or make it as it is and make any other additional comments. So the way it went was Councillor Bain, are you to stay open or to suggest reopening or stay closed?
I'm still in favor of opening them. In fact, I would think the way to control it is one correspondence piece suggested, control it through the parking. If it's difficult to park, you're going to have less people here. I also recognized after reconsidering that there are an awful lot of people who do use the trails. And if we're all going to be sort of hunkered down in Lions Bay, we really don't have a whole lot of things to do, and a lot of activity does take place on the trails by people walking. So, I wouldn't make a big deal publicizing this, making some statement or anything, as Councillor Barmeyer alluded to the same idea. I think the mental health and well-being of the community is an issue that we will need to do. And just because everything is getting more strict in other areas, we gotta have something available for people that they can do and get out of their houses safely. And for the time that I've been on the trails, true, I do have a dog, but I've been walking on the streets more lately. People have been showing distance, what I've come across. So, whereas in the park like Lions Bay Beach, you can form a crowd there easily. You've got more space. You would think you could have more distance. Well, I think there's more distance on the trails that I have seen, and people tend to get into small groups in the big open areas, which are really what you don't want to do. So I'm still in favor of them open.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cunliffe, are you, you were at open, are you the same?
Yeah, I would tend to stay the same. I agree with a lot of what Fred has to say, and what Councillor Barmier said, maybe with a heavy suggestion of keeping our pets on leash for the time being, as opposed to running rampant on the trail if there is a concern of pet-to-pet transfer.
Is that a caveat to openness?
Open.
Without the leash?
Well,
Sorry, can I speak?
please.
I don't have it in front of me, but I think Dr. Bonnie Henry made some kind of a statement about non-transferability of the virus from animals to humans, but that's something that should be checked. Secondly, if you're going to say that they have to be on leash, then we would have to amend the bylaw that says they can be off leash after the first 50 meters. I can't remember if that's this bylaw or not.
I think it is.
I would say we need to confirm whether that there is transfer from pet to pet, pet to human. But as it stands right now, it just seems too complicated, and I think we've cut off the main source by cutting off the parking and accessibility to the vast public, and if they keep it to residents and ask them to follow what they're doing and be respectful. I agree with Fred, mental health, and having residents have a place to go, what they're used to, their ritual is very important at this point. And so I'm in favor of keeping it open.
Thank you very much. Councillor Abbott, you were at open. Do you say the same?
Yes, I do, and largely for the reasons I've said earlier. I don't know what happened to the press release that was meant to go out to the wider public. It would have been a little unfortunate that hasn't gone out yet, so we could softly close the trails without making the statement. Too many people outside the village. I do think the jurisdiction thing is an issue, and I was looking at the trail map today. I'm actually looking at it now. There's even just trails that we didn't even discuss last time in the village. And I'm still a little puzzled unless there's a clear answer as to why it's only the Lions Trail that we don't have jurisdiction on. Soundview Trail, Harrison Trail, Wood Access Trail, that are all old logging roads. I know some of them are through our property. So I think there's probably even more complexity as to what we could close if we really wanted to.
All right, thank you very much. I've got a lineup of speakers. Again, I'm trying to nail to the end here because I'm ready to go to a motion of recommendation. Councillor Bain, you're first up.
Hold
Just a,
on. We did a lap there and I didn't get to speak.
What?
I thought we were doing a lap and I was meant to speak at the end.
Oh, didn't I do you before I did? Didn't I do you? Didn't I do you? Sorry, I must have missed you. I apologize. Councillor Barmier, open and close.
So Neville touched on something interesting that caught me off guard. Are we suggesting that our press release did not go out?
That's what I was going to have my hand up for, because it did go out.
Okay, perfect. So
Went out
that was,
simultaneously with the village update.
yeah, okay. I just wanted to be sure about that. I think, and maybe I don't have total perspective on this, but really the message for me was to send to the outside that we're closed. We don't want people coming in from the outside. That was, and it's not because we don't like people from the outside, it was just that it was resulting in crowds and making it unsafe for our residents. So I'm fine to take it back and say we should open our local trails because people use them to go between neighborhoods, they use them to stay off the roads because we don't have sidewalks. So that was really my intention, and I'm hoping that we can open silently and not let everybody know that it's happening.
All right, well, ultimately, I do have a recommendation here, but the board is lit up and everybody's talking. So I've got Councillor Bain is next up. I've got Councillor Bain next up, and then Councillor Cunliffe.
just one little point. It was speaking about dogs off leash on the trails. I walked down to the post office today and looked at the sign at the entrance to the Centennial Trail. And there is a sign saying dogs must be on leash. So it must be in the bylaw, I presume. Although I know a lot of people do release their dog from the leash after they get a certain distance in. So I don't know exactly if that makes a factor for anybody.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cunliffe?
Just to speak to the press release, I did have a colleague who told me he got it through his social media from local news that he gets through the City of Burnaby, City of Vancouver, and he did see that yesterday as soon as it went out that we had effectively closed Lions Bay for recreation. So it is out there.
Thank you very much. Councillor Abbott?
Sorry, I was just wanted to qualify my statement. It didn't go out. I didn't mean to suggest that it wasn't issued. It was more a comment that I've been scanning the main media and news channels for the last few days pretty religiously, looking to see it, and it wasn't on the main news channels. What I meant to say, I didn't mean to say it hadn't been issued.
Good enough. All right, I think it's pretty clear that council would like the, we've done the outside, we've done the village update, we've done the outside media release, and the village update is tomorrow. My proposal is that staff write a piece tomorrow, a short piece, because it'll be picked up quickly, along the lines that council has decided that the village trails are open, and then go through the protocols for appropriate distance and all the rest of that stuff. I think it'll pick up fairly quickly, and I don't know that we need to do any more. I'll put that forward, and if there's a second to that, I'll take it, and we'll go to a quick discussion for amendment. I see.
Sorry, just, can I don't have my hand up, but
That's
just
fine.
realizing what, I think I had mentioned in the email that I had sent out, what you really need to do is reconsider the resolution that was passed in the last meeting and take a vote on reconsidering it. And then if that vote passes, then reconsider it, which you've kind of already done now.
Yep.
But I think for formality, should probably just, somebody move to reconsider the resolution from the last meeting regarding the trail closures. And then, once that passes, then determine what it is you're going to do with that information, which was, what page was that? That was 15, I think.
119. Parks regulation.
The minute, sorry, the minutes of the last meeting.
21, I think.
For Carl?
21.
21,
I'm not sorry.
21 of 204.
Yeah.
Carla was on top of this.
So that's the resolution on page 21 of 204 that you need to reconsider. Once you pass the reconsideration, then you can deal with amending the motion or putting it forward a new motion or varying the motion. So really going through this list, which is supposed to include the Lions Bay Beach Park itself at the very top of the list. Going through that list, we get down to first mention of a trail is the Centennial Trail and all other trails within the Village of Lions Bay boundaries. Is that the only thing that needs to be varied or basically stricken from the previous resolution? If so, then all you would need to do after the motion to reconsider is passed is somebody move a motion to vary the previous resolution, and then if that's seconded, vary it by striking Centennial and other trails in Lions Bay boundaries, and then if that's passed, seconded, then you vote on it. I think that's all you need to do.
All right, we'll go to the board in just a minute. So, and Peter, where would we do this, given that we kind of know where the outcome is? Do we go to an amendment now, or?
Yeah, you would somebody put forward a motion to reconsider that resolution, put it forward now, and then second it, and then vote on it, and then move on from there to either strike, vary, or
Okay.
put forward a new resolution. So.
Okay, thank you very much, and I will fumble through this in a minute, and Carla's miles ahead of us, she's already given me the wording, but I see, CAOs will drop off in a minute. Jamie, you're next up, did you have something?
Nope.
Take your hand down. Thank you very much. Okay, then I think if we could close off the discussion we just had, and I will put forward a motion to reconsider the previous motion that council directs staff to close the following community parks and facilities to maintain community health and safety through the COVID-19 pandemic until further notice. And the rest of the stuff is on page 21 of 204, which would include Lions Bay Beach Park. So can I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you very much, Councillor Abbott. Is there any discussion? Because then we're going to go to the amendment. Any discussion? Please speak up. Good. No discussion. I will call a motion. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, say no.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you very much. All in favor? So, which brings us to the second piece, which is a new resolution. And this would be, again, using the same page 21 of 204 as the base document. And I would read it, and I'll put this forward as a motion, that council directs staff to close the following community parks and facilities to maintain community health and safety through the COVID-19 pandemic until further notice. All Lions Bay Beach Park, Lions Bay Beach Parking Lot, Kelvin Grove Beach Park, Kelvin Grove Beach Parking Lot, Sunset North Parking Lot. And the piece here that would be struck would be the Centennial Trail and other trails within the village of Lions Bay boundaries. So that is not in part of this. It would be Brunswick Beach Park, lands at 63 Brunswick Beach, and Lions Bay tennis courts. And I'll go further, and a communication of this amendment is released tomorrow in the village update. Can I have a second on that?
Sorry, the communication is just to, is just via the village update, correct?
Just
Not
via,
the-
just via the village update, and it can follow my article tomorrow.
Right, good.
All right, I need a second there, and then I'll go to the board on discussion.
I'll second.
Thank you very much, and then Councillor Abbott, you're next on discussion. There being none is fine.
Sorry, my hand went up to discuss the communication piece. But I guess if you're going to adjust your planned village update tomorrow, that's okay. I just wanted to pass a comment on some comments I received about the tone of some of the other village updates we put out. And I think we need to just keep that tone and keep that message.
Perfect, so, well, I can't, I'm not sure what the CAO is going to put out, but I'm sure it's not going to be very much. The doggies are going to pick it up, and we're good. All right, CAO, you're next up on the board.
Sorry, I think that was in respect of the communication via village update only. So I'll lower my hand now.
Put your hand in your pocket. Thank you very much. Any further discussion on this, and then I'll call a motion. No discussion, I'm going to call a motion. All in favor say aye, all those opposed say nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye, sorry,
Aye.
not quick on the mute.
That's good, and aye as well. Unanimous, thank you. All right, thank you very much. That we've solved that piece. And thank you very much, everybody. Which brings us to...
Sorry, Mayor McLaughlin, how did you vote there? I didn't catch it.
Aye. Thank you very much, which brings us to the mayor's report, and a couple of things, and I'll zip through it quickly once I'm organized. I'll be quick. First thing is the Metro Climate Action Committee meeting that was held last Friday. It runs together. Discussion was brief. The CAO of Metro did live up to his promise, sat near the front of the thing to ensure this went through. The members were very happy to unanimously approve as the staff recommended. The bottom line here is Lions Bay will get a 7-year extension compared to the rest of Metro Vancouver urban communities. At Metro tomorrow, the directors meet, and if it is, I hope it's not pulled from the consent agenda and is voted on, it should be approved by 10 o'clock tomorrow. And I'll communicate that to the community next Friday, not this Friday. The next piece that I was going to add was the CN Police. We're, just as with the province on the highway noise, we've drilled down to the right person. They're prepared to two things. One, we have a public relations person on our side here too, and we also have their primary police person who is going to give us a secondary one as well. They're pretty serious about this, and they don't want people walking on the line. So I think when we start pulling in the armory, I think we've got some horsepower there too. Next one, I think I said TransLink. Per council's direction, I've asked them to stand down on any changes in ridership. The next piece I have is I can tell you I've had no response to our press release, which I take as good news. And the last thing, and I guess this is about the power of what we're putting out there, I had Karen pull some stats for me on what we're doing in the Village Hits. We're running at a continual, and I'll go from the last time I wrote, which was March the 6th, and we consistently send out 787 emails, and we consistently have 72 to 74% openings on those. On the article that I wrote and covered a variety of things, I'll just keep in mind it's 582 open. Here's how many people went to the links. The issue on the Lions Bay School, which was where children's accomplishments, they got 32 hits. The criteria for the Tim Jones Award was 22 hits. The John Dudley story was 28. The Madison Maley, the Olympian, was 28. Patrick Weiler, we recirculated his no plastics letter. He got 20 hits. He was quite tickled with that when I told him. The TransLink electric bike got no hits, and I'm happy to say, although there'll be a little sad face in a moment, when I say that the budget that I described had 0 hits.
Well, I'll just quit now.
That nobody wants to see the numbers, they just want the story down. Then the next time we wrote was March the 13th, which is where Robert did the lead, and that was a pretty strong COVID message, the same number, 73% hits. His story did not have any links within his story, but there was 2 health organization links. One, which was Coastal Health, got 10 hits, and the other one, there was 4 there. The other one got 6, the other 2 got 0. On the Senior Circle, the Diamond Head Chalet story, they got 30, which must be all of the seniors. I'm sad to say that the World Tales short story got 0 hits. Then on to where we had sent our other stuff, which was a message from Mayor and Council. Same high number, same high hit openings. The article on the COVID-19 self-assessment got 12 hits. The COVID World got 7 hits. In this drastic time, Mr. Jaffer will be happy to know that the Spring Flush got 21 hits. Can you believe the Flush hits got more in the budget, Pam?
Oh, stop.
Oh, just stop it, eh? And I can't believe 6 people wanted to know when the next council meetings were. The Facebook page relative to the store, we believe they got 29 hits. And I think on our last message, which was on Sunday the 22nd, which we didn't do any links, again, that was a strong 72% opening, and that closes my report. Council, anything else to say? There being none, oh, yes?
Sorry, Mayor McLaughlin, I just thought I'd make a comment. When you mentioned the short story contest, I did get an email earlier today from Robin Spano, and she indicated that the people putting on the contest have sent out an email or a notice saying, directing contestants to simply apply directly to them without going through a municipal body or whatever, and do it by April 30th. So she was looking for some direction. I haven't got back to her yet, but I think that we'll have to double check what the new rules are, what the new directions are, and I guess confirm that the Arts Council still wants to award something to what they deem to be the best entry from Lions Bay, but I can touch base with Robin and get on that tomorrow and and adjust the message that goes out in the village update accordingly. So I'd bring that up.
Thank you very much for that offer, and if you would do that, that would be great. And I'm sure everybody agrees. All right, so thank you very much. I presume no other council things. Committees, I believe there are none, although I don't want to be ambiguous. Did we agree that the ESS would be canceled or should be canceled?
They have canceled their meetings already.
Thank you very much. I would say on the ESS, I think I have one person who I've recruited, and it looks like they would seriously consider joining. Councillor Cunliffe has given me the name of two others that she wants me to play the mirror card on them and see if I can bolster the ranks there. So I will try and do that between now and the 7th. And thank you, Councillor.
Sorry, I expect that we'll probably have some further information from Robert at the next meeting with respect to the potential to enlist the services of the Red Cross for ESS services. So I'll double check with Robert, but I expect we'll have some information for you next meeting.
Would you suggest I not contact these potential members or follow ahead?
Yeah, I think he's been also, I think that was the loose string that needs to be tied up as well. I think he's had a couple of conversations with a couple of the members, and I think that the general feedback he got was positive. But I'll have a much more comprehensive report for council next meeting, I expect.
Okay, well, I tell you what, I will not contact the potential members until the meeting of the 7th. Thank you very much. Thanks for that late-breaking info. Emergency services, and which leads to the RCMP report, which is on page 47. If there's no questions, not that I think any of us could answer it, I'll take it as received. Motion to receive, I'll put it forward, second. I'll take a silent second, thank you. Councillor Bain, that's a second. Any discussion? I'll call a motion. I'll presume motion to receive is carried. I'll presume ayes unless there's a nay. Okay, received, thank you very much, which brings us up to the resolution. And CAO, can you shed some light on this one before us on number 9?
Maybe I'll just give my voice a rest and let Public Works Manager Jaffer run with this one.
Thank you. Mr. Jaffer?
We've received a request from the contractors working on the wastewater treatment plant, some of whom are flying back and forth across the province to Ottawa, that they be declared a critical function, and so they can show the letter to border, customs and border at the airport. While we were thinking about that, we thought that any potential contractors we need to hire on the water side or wastewater for other reasons should also be classified as essential services. And that's where this resolution comes forward. Essentially what it does is it allows contractors and subcontractors and suppliers to continue because we deem it an essential service for us. I will also, sorry, go ahead, Peter.
No, you continue, sorry, I interrupted.
I will add that the CAO did provide me with a link to the province, who have now also declared certain services, including those that we've identified here, as essential. However, the contractors feel that a letter from me citing a council resolution would provide more weight.
Okay, I think we all get the picture now that you've kind of said it. All right, well, I think the resolution is here, I don't propose to read it, but it's right there on our agenda piece that begins that council considers functioning critical infrastructure as imperative, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I will put forward that as a motion. Can I have a second? And I need a voice.
Second,
Good. We'll open discussion, and Councillor Abbott, your hand is up.
I'm happy with the resolution. I just had a question for the Public Works Manager, that we should also be exploring other options. I have people that work on water projects for a large mining firm. They are considered an essential service. Well, in all industries considered, it's allowed to keep working essential, effectively. But the owners have decreed that we can't send workers who have to fly. Everyone has to be within driving distance, to drive there separately, no more than 8 hours a day, cannot share vehicles, cannot lead to cross-shift, all these kind of regulations. So I would advise that we should start exploring ways to do it with local workers, if at all possible, because you might not have that choice pretty soon.
All right, so noted. Public Works Manager Jaffer, you accept that advice?
Yeah, typically we will be hiring local contractors, the wastewater treatment plant being the exception that was approved earlier in the year, and the contractor is in Ottawa.
Very good. Any more discussion on this before I call a motion? Councillor Abbott, your hand's still up? Now it's down. All right, I will call a motion. All in favor, aye, and if you're a nay, please say so.
aye.
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
you. All in favor, unanimous. Thank you very much. Which brings us to item number 10, which is council, oh, we already did that. What are we going to talk about? 10B, sorry, there we are. We are on item 10B, which is the intermunicipal TNS business license agreement bylaw number 572/2020 and intermunicipal TNS business license bylaw number 573. It is on page 83 of your agenda, if you need to look at that. And the piece is that intermunicipal TNS will split this up. And the first is that intermunicipal TNS business license agreement bylaw number 572/2020 be adopted. I'll put forward the motion, ask for a second and discussion. May I have a second, please? Councillor Green, that's a second. Then discussion, and I see CAO, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just thought I could mention that we haven't received any feedback from the public regarding these bylaws, other than encouragement in terms of providing or getting on the train, for so to speak, for ride hailing services. So it's unfortunate that the opportunity that was intended to be heard, to allow for people to be heard at the beginning of this meeting, was more or less precluded by circumstances. I'm not so sure that we would have seen anybody stepping forward to say anything contrary to what I think has been so far general acceptance and encouragement of the path that we're on.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion before I call a motion? No, when I call a motion, this will be the fourth and final reading, and it will become in effect. Call a motion, all in favor, please say aye. The negatives opposed. This is final reading. It's legislative.
Aye.
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 Unanimous, thank you, that's passed. And then this will be the second piece. The intermunicipal TNS business license bylaw number 573/2020 be adopted. I'll put forward that motion. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Bain. And I'll go to discussion on this. Any questions? CAO, any comments? Thank you very much. Then I will call the motion. This will be final reading when I do. I will call the motion, and may I have the ayes and the nays if there are any?
Aye.
Good, unanimous, thank you very much. Which brings us to item C, which is the Parks Regulations Bylaw number 448, 2012, Amendment Bylaw number 576, 2020. This is on page 119 of your binders, and there we go. And that Parks Regulation number 448, 2012, Amendment Bylaw number 576, 2020 be adopted. I'll put forward the motion. Can I have a second? Please. Thank you, Councillor Bain. Is there any discussion on this? This looks good. All right. Going on in the discussion. I'm going to call a motion. Gone. Calling the motion. All in favor, aye. And the nays opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Fine, we'll presume it's unanimous. There we are. That's not presuming, it is unanimous. Sorry, Carla. Next is the bylaw notice enforcement, bylaw number 385, 2006, amendment bylaw number 577, 2020. This is on page 131 of your binders. I will be putting forward the motion that this is adopted and ask for a second before we go to discussion. Can I have a second, please? Please.
Second.
Thank you very much,
I'll
Councillor Abbott.
second.
Thank you very much, Councillor Abbott. Okay, we move to discussion on this. We beat this up pretty much, well, actually, it was the other stuff we did. Any discussion on this, councillors?
Mayor McLaughlin?
Yep. Yes,
Remember, there was some mention of this bylaw by former Mayor Burr in his correspondence?
Yes, hang on for a second, let me find it.
Just while you're looking for that, please note, everyone, that the amending bylaw has been adjusted as per the amendments that were put forward last meeting. Which is 132 of 204.
Well, where is it? I can't find Mr. Burr.
Actually, sorry, my apologies. The on page 132, section 2A reads, doesn't include the amendments to include sections 9.3, 10.1, 11.3 or 4, 5, and 12.2, although they are included in the table. So with council's consent to reflect the intent of the amendments that were passed with 3 readings at the last meeting, section 2A should actually read penalty amounts for sections 9.3, 10.1, and then 10.3, 11.1, etc., up to 11.3, and then also 11.4, 11.5, and 12.2. So that adoption is incorporating those amendments that were read 3 times last meeting.
Okay, thank you. So this will still in the discussion stage here. So, it'll be with those amendments as the CAO pointed out. I do have, Mayor Burr's thing, I'm just looking. Okay, the first one's trails, what is the finding bylaw in yesterday's notice? I don't think he has, I'm looking at this. Okay, first one's amending, opening a trail, dealt with that. What is the finding bylaw, which we're talking about, so I can't answer that. And then he's talking about parking meter revenue. So we're gonna presume that Mr. Burr's out of this discussion. Okay, so keeping in mind what the CAO just mentioned for amendments, is there any other discussion? Prepared to call a motion?
Yeah, sorry, just to clarify, what I mentioned was not an amendment, it's just a correction.
Correction?
Of, well, actually given 3 readings.
Okay, so the correction on that. I will call a motion then. All in favor, please say aye or nay.
Aye.
I,
Aye.
Thank you very much. And that concludes that, and we are on to correspondence. And Councillor Bain, are you up to this?
Yeah, give it a shot. Yeah, I'm just trying to get my,
If you're struggling,
stuff.
if you're struggling and have to look at multi-screens, I can go through it.
Yeah, I am kind of bouncing between screens. I found the share screen thing, put them both up at once, but excluded all of you guys, so it didn't seem like a good option.
can you tell me what page it's on?
We're in correspondence 163 of 204.
Thank you.
Okay, here we go. First one, UBCM resolution process. I think the key point there was in their bullet points, the first two, identify more directly the resolutions that address the priority to the membership. I think what they're trying to do is just get some little discipline into here, because I presume that a lot of less interesting things were coming forward. So it's an information piece, so I would just say we receive it.
Thank you very much. Next.
Next is the Forest Enhancement Society of BC accomplishments. Yeah, they're getting stuff done, I guess, and just a information piece again, so receive that one.
Thank you very much.
From Dennis Dugas, wanting some support for his initiative to get some provincial funding for fire department stuff. Don't know where that one's going. It looks like he's had this thing going since 2017. Looks like he's got support from the UBCM, but he's asking for support from us as well. I don't know if that's something the mayor wishes to respond to.
No, I think we've got bigger issues at this moment.
I would think so too. Okay, received on that one. I'm scrolling down. Oh, still, that's more of it. RCBC, I don't know if anybody wants to go to their annual conference in Ottawa, was it?
Let's go no with that.
Yeah, let's go no. Okay, received. Jillian Day, talking about a request for lobbying the government, I suppose, for a universal public national pharmacare program, pardon me, is a top priority. Yeah, I don't know, does it require anything of us to do right now?
I would think there's bigger issues to deal with. I'd let it pass.
Okay, received.
Thank you.
More of the pharmacare issue. Stephanie Beatty.
I propose to write her, this is the bike park,
Yeah.
a carefully worded email back that I'll have the CAO review before I send it, if that's fine with council.
Fine here.
Presume yes, thank you. Mr. Lieutenant?
Okay. And we've got Myron Lutet emphasizing keep water and infrastructure as priority one. I think he's like-minded with all of us, unless I'm unaware. Maybe we can send a letter of thanks for the support.
I'll do that, thank you.
Okay. We have Carl Burr speaking on the effects of wood smoke. They're not good and we need to change. I think he has a point. I think it's worth discussion on some future time here.
I've responded to him, Councillor Green.
Okay, done. Oops, still more of it, another page. Now we've got Ocean View, Highview Road End. I think this one's been responded to, if I'm not mistaken.
It's been responded to.
Yeah, okay, received. And to whom it may concern, who was that one from? Oh, Mandy Clark. Key piece here is talking about EMF radiation. Her points being received, and we're going to be dealing with this at a future date.
I'll respond.
Okay. Now we're down to Craig Doherty's proposal of looking out for one another. I think this one's been back and forth between the mayor and Mr. Doherty.
And everybody. I think we've received and done this enough times.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you.
Okay, scrolling down further.
So we're now on to page 191 of 204.
That's the next March 26 correspondence. That's something from Kelly Taylor. Let's see, she's talking about the beaches and trails and whatnot. I think we pretty well put that one to rest tonight.
No, I don't think so.
No?
No, I think she wrote long about signage that she says doesn't exist, that does exist, and other things. And there is, excuse me, my voice is going like yours, Councillor Green. There was two similar emails. One was from Kelly Taylor, the other one was from Deirdre McNeil. And CAO, you're up in just a second. And it had to do with signage and parking and things like that. I've got a recommendation, but I see the CAO, oh, you put your hand down. So my suggestion is that on both of these, that staff respond. Because if there is signage there, we need to say there's signage there. I guess it's a personal view in this. I'll seek input from the Public Works Manager. Is this something you would like to do?
Voluntold.
Pardon?
I'll be voluntold.
It's my,
Very tactful.
okay, I'll resend both of those to you then. Thank you very much. You've skated lightly for weeks now. Okay, thank you. If I can zip ahead here since I know what I'm doing.
Okay.
I can tell you that for Heather Hood, I've addressed her issue along with Rhonda Chevrette's, which is R6, in my update tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
So they'll see that, they'll know.
Okay. So now we scroll way down. Ty Giovanni, talking about this situation of partying city youth causes every weekend, as they will surely ignore all provisions since the very reason they come to Lions Bay is walk on the CN lines to their private unpoliced beach. This has been an ongoing issue. Not too sure if how we want to address this one.
Be happy to respond to him.
Okay. And moving on, we've got Penny Nelson, talking about issues of signage in the cul-de-sac on Sunset. Let's see.
Can I just
Please
speak
do.
in here? It was suggested that this is not the right time to take this up, so we could just put it on the back burner at a more normal time.
Okay.
But you can respond if you want.
Is that okay by the mayor?
How about we have Councillor Abbott respond? No, we're gonna hold it,
Sure.
okay?
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Okay,
Do you need your email address? Sorry.
you're killing me.
Okay, the next one's Emily Montgomery. I see it's being responded to. She's asking about the tennis court opening. I think, there was a discussion this past week about, finding that not appropriate at this time. So I think that's, received and moved on.
Yeah,
Okay, and from, Rhonda Chevet.
I've responded.
Oh, we responded, okay, that's dealt with. Okay, and we're down to Helen Watterson,
She's getting ink she's getting ink in the update tomorrow, thanking her.
yeah, it's a good news story, wish them well,
Yeah, and we do.
okay. And, we've got, these forwarded ones, I lose track of them.
And the last
Mhm.
is
from
Mr. Brandvold that I've responded to.
Received and responded to,
There you go.
believe that's the end.
Oh no. So just a second too, one administrative thing. We are approaching 10 o'clock and I need a motion to extend us for, let me just quickly look at the agenda. A motion to extend for 45. Can I have
So
a
moved.
second? Well, sorry. Second, please. Thank you very much. Mr. Barmeyer is there. Okay, all in favor? Yes, thank you. So we're good to, okay. And CAO, we have the clump of what I would call the trail emails that were today. I don't think we particularly want to, I think you were going to consider those as on table. Is that your thinking, CAO?
That was my suggestion, that they be, assuming that council all saw them and took them into consideration when the trails matter was discussed earlier, then I think it would probably be appropriate to accept them as on table and attach them to as on table documents received for the meeting when we post the minutes on the website.
Yes, further to that, my recommendation is that, exactly as you said, is that we receive them as on table. And that my second piece of that is that in the disclosure tomorrow in the village update, that we recognize the many people that wrote in, and however you do that so we don't have to respond to everybody.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Can I put forward the motion to receive these numerous letters, and Carly will clean house on everything on that? Thank you very much. Can I have a seconder on that? Good. All in favor of receiving all the outstanding correspondence, which in my view will clear all of our correspondence as of today.
Aye.
Fine. Any discussion? All in favor? Can I have ayes and nay?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And let me see.
Aye.
I wonder, I'm so tired. I've lost track whether Councillor Bain hands over the correspondence reins or not. I'll have that figured out by next meeting. Councillor Abbott, you're up. If we got something before we move on.
Just one little thing, I noticed in the correspondence there was one pertaining to the cell tower, I thought it was. just a note for Edmund, just can you make sure that we pull that one out and it comes back at the appropriate time for the rest of the correspondence?
Good pickup on that one.
Yeah.
You'll take care of that, CAO?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Good pickup, Councillor. Okay, the new business, and I'll be quick on this one. And I'm just getting a flavor because I don't want to direct staff, but I'd like some feedback. When I was having my dialogue with Mrs. Montgomery, one of the things that she brought up was, is the village considering temporarily closing Airbnbs? My quick, putting my foot in my mouth on this, I was trying to deflect from staff because I know they're busy, and I responded. I did a quick Airbnb and VBRO search, found nobody listed, and CAO told me we have one licensed operation. And I presumed the Airbnbs haven't surfaced in this council, and I think in the previous council, it may have been a year before the end of term. So what I'm saying is the Airbnbs have been nowhere on the radar for over 2.5 years. Mrs. Montgomery did her own search, and I guess she did it in a different way on Airbnb, and found 8 operating in Lions Bay. My view to her hadn't changed, that given travel restrictions and presuming everybody's following the COVID-19 protocols, there's not a lot of places to visit around here, and if they've just flown in, they're not going anywhere. So the bottom line was that I told her it wasn't on our radar, because in the scenario where everybody is respectful, people frequently check in without the ownership being there, and they do what they do, and they just leave. So I'm looking for council's guidance on this, just as a quickie, and again, my recommendation is we do nothing, but I'll listen.
So
Peter,
got my hand up.
Peter, see it? I see it. Thank you.
So we do actually have 2 more applications in the pipe, and the building inspector had reviewed one of them and just had a few follow-up things that need to be taken care of. So, the enforcement against those who were doing it last year was sort of, we were trying to funnel people into the system, get them to apply. A couple did. One dropped off when it was clear they weren't going to pass the inspection. Another one's had numerous things to address, and is still addressing those things. But in terms of enforcement, it would be sort of, at this point in time, lower priority, but it was something that I had intended as something for the bylaw enforcement officers to, again, try and get a handle on that and corral people to either apply or shut them down if they weren't going to apply for a temporary use permit under our permitting process. So at the moment, it's not really on my radar. I don't see it as something that's a big issue right now.
Thank you very much. Council, any feedback on this?
Yeah, I got my hand up here, but just a small point. I wouldn't want to spend too much time on it. And I was just thinking, in regard to the health concerns and everything, if somebody came in and left and no contact with the people, it sounds fine, except for the fact that if they were carriers, they've infected a household and the next people coming in could be infected. So the issue would be about the sterilization of the premises when somebody comes through. So bottom line to me is, I think our position should be that we would want to discourage, even just verbally, anyone engaging in this activity until we're past this crisis.
When I contacted Mrs. Montgomery in my scenario that I'd laid out as I did to you, I said I wouldn't discourage it, but I wouldn't encourage it either. Ooh, this isn't good. My battery's going to die. Carla? This isn't good at all.
Did you have a chart?
Nope.
No.
Hello, my battery's going to die, so we're gonna have to adjust here for a minute. Can we switch the chair over to you?
Sure.
We're gonna switch the chair over to Carla, because I'm gonna die in a second.
Why don't you?
Hey, Nye, did you get that presentation I sent you?
About half an hour.
You're muted.
Okay, we'll pause the meeting here for a minute.
No, I did not.
That's in the chat.
How about you
Save
use
the
this
presentation
and
I
I'll
got from
just take
AECOM
care of your minutes.
on their construction division. It's got some really interesting
Okay,
information.
thank you.
I'll just have
Just
to.
Thank you,
Fine
Mark.
with me touching
Yeah.
your screen and all that stuff?
Yeah,
Well,
I'm sure you don't
Probably really only one
Actually, we're gonna
slide.
go
That's
into in-camera
that's interesting,
just
just like precautions on the job.
why don't we hang on to it? You're gonna go in camera.
Are you still?
I'll go through it, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, I tell you what, why don't we go in camera, and if we die, we'll go to you.
You still need it when you're in camera though.
Why would we be recording in camera?
It's not recording, it's just, you still need to
Okay, yeah, just go in camera and then.
Just a second. Peter, a question. I presume that when we go in camera, we will not be recording on.
No, we won't, but, you can always use the telephone conferencing if you want.
Well, as long as you've got the thing and I've got the
Yeah.
agenda, we're good.
Okay,
Because if we're going, I mean, Carla, mine's gonna die in a minute. So Carla will become the host and she'll be seeing who, and you're gonna have to unmute yourself so you can say who's on the speaking rotation.
okay.
Okay, so let's nip through sorry to confuse everybody. So let's nip through this then. I conclude on the Airbnbs. So I think, all right, I just want to bring it up and engage council, because I think I've written to her, it's a deader issue, but we've got a bit more information. So if there's no further questions on that, I'll let it go, and then we'll move on. There being none, thank you. There is no public questions and comments, and we're about to go to the closed council meeting. And the purpose of topics for discussion in the absence of the public are the 2020 budget supplementals, and that the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if discussion regarding the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements is held in open. The other topics are Citizen of the Year and Citizen of Distinction Awards. The next topic is Human Resources Labor Relations. And Councillor Abbott, if it's fine with you, I suggest we strike the review for this moment.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, that the meeting be closed to the public on the basis of matters to be considered under the following sections of the community charter. Section 91, A, B, C, E, F, I, and N. Council does not anticipate reconvening the open meeting for any purpose other than to adjourn the meeting generally. Is council, can I have council's approval of those matters? And please say aye or nay.
Aye.
Thank you, Councillor Barmay, I heard you in there. Okay, we will now go to the closed portion of the meeting. And Carla, how do I close the recording? Okay, thank you. We're live on microphone at almost quarter to 11. And council has come out from the closed section, and we are going to report out that the Citizen of the Year and the Citizen of Distinction Awards have been agreed, the recipients have been agreed on by council, and that the advice of the awards and the presentation will be decided at a date to come soon. Thank you very much, everybody, and can I have a motion to close? Thank you. Seconder? Thank you. We're done. Carla, we're done. Thank you, everybody.